Hello and welcome to today's edition of Route 664, The Road to Human Kindness. I'm Les Winston, I'm your host, and I'm also the national spokesperson for socialsecharity.org. Also, I am involved in the Aventura Sunny Isles Beach Chamber of Commerce. We had a meeting several weeks back where I had the opportunity of meeting a candidate who's running for State House of Representatives. She was very impressive. I wanted to have a chance to speak to her more about her story and why she has decided to seek political office. My guest this morning is Lynn Su. Lynn is the candidate for seat 106 in the area that includes Aventura and Sunny Isles Beach. Good morning, Lynn. How are you?
Good morning, Les. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, you have a very interesting background, and I think it would be interesting to the folks out there, people who are listening right now. I'd like you to get a handle on how somebody makes a decision to run for office. And Lynn, if you would tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, well, first of all, my parents were immigrants from Thailand. We came here and, they worked hard to get an education and to make a living. And eventually they really did, they were given the opportunity to succeed. And there it was, right? People are all, we're not much different. I think it's the opportunity that makes a difference. So that's what they got from this country. And it actually had me feel, well, I mean, who I am today, being raised in this country, being educated. I went to UCLA I was the first of my family to graduate from college.
Mhm.
Um, and all of that was thanks to the United States of America. Mhm.
So you're running in a district that's a pretty big district. You could define it a little bit.
Well, actually, all the districts are about the same. We have about 180,000 constituents each.
Mhm.
Um, my city, my line actually goes from the northern border of Miami-Dade County, which includes Aventura and Golden Beach, and then goes all the way down to Fisher Island. It includes all the Venetian Islands, North Bay Village, and everything east of Biscayne, moving forward north.
One of the things that we're very interested in is the education of our children and to see that our schools are
Mhm.
well funded. And one of the projects that we have is Safe Schools, Great Schools. Tell me a little bit about what you feel what issues there are in the education of our children right now.
Mm. I believe that our education about everybody gets a trophy is actually, well, there's these are fundamental things, right? I think every kid gets a trophy isn't working.
Hmm.
I think that we should actually encourage merit. We should encourage competition, and we should encourage sportsmanship. So basically, that's really fundamentally, I think there's something that went wrong there in the middle because we felt bad for some kids that weren't doing well. But that's the problem. We're trying to squeeze everybody into the same box or a circle or a triangle without really looking at the child and what they can excel in. And
Okay.
with the country in where we are, I mean, America's like, the best country in the world.
Right.
And why is it that we cannot customize education so that it actually fits different types of children, different learning styles, different preferences? I mean, some people are fantastic at music,
Hmm.
great at singing, great at sports. I mean, all of that can be tailored so that it would fit the child.
Okay.
So,
What about school choice? Do you think
oh,
that school choice is important?
yeah, with that said, like that was the whole purpose of me going into school choice is because I think that the parents know their children best. And
Hmm.
if they don't, they can also always get counseling so they can find out what their strengths or how their children learn. Then they can take these vouchers, however you want to do it. We're thinking of, I mean, like I'm thinking universal education savings accounts or vouchers from the state, whatever it is that could make it quick and easy for everybody to just pick a school that suits their child and go there. So
Okay.
school choice is absolutely the biggest thing that I would like to push and also vote for or even sponsor when I get to Tallahassee.
Okay. My guest is Lynn Su. She's a candidate for seat 106 in the state legislature. And we wish you a lot of luck, Lynn. I know that this is not an easy task. I've run for office in the past, and it's quite consuming. So we appreciate the efforts that you're making on behalf of the people of the state of Florida. That's very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. So I had an opportunity the other day to talk with our team about a new concept that we've been developing, which is a new branding concept. It is not changing anything that we've been talking about. We are still Route 664, the road to human kindness. This program is about love. It's about love of each other and human kindness to each other. And that can be accomplished in a lot of different ways. But from an economic perspective, we've identified it and we've given it a formula. I kind of got this idea when I was reading the letter that Albert Einstein wrote to his daughter, where he was explaining that E equals mc squared. His theory of relativity is the most important thing that he's known for, but he also came to realize that there was a higher power, and that power was love, and that love is God, and God is love, and it all fits in with human kindness, and that's one of the things that we're focused on, obviously. So we have our own formula. The formula is 664 equals E squared. I've got the board up in the long way, if you can see it. You just have to bring it down maybe like that. Okay. So the formula is 664 equals E squared. And the question is, when do you use this powerful formula? When is it usable to the individual? What should you be thinking about when you hear 664? What should you think about 664? And this is the most important thing that we want to stress, is that 664 can be used by anybody for any purpose. If they want to accumulate assets for income purposes later on, they want to do some tax planning, and then eventually they want to endow the community after they're gone. That's what 664 equals E squared stands for. E is endowment. E is endowment. We want to endow the individual, and then when the individual passes, we want to endow the community. The endowment to the individual is in the form of income for life. They have the empowered to be able to endow others if they want to with the same funds. But the point is, it's an account that you create. It's a 664 account. So 664 can be used anytime you have a taxable event that's coming up, where you're going to sell property, or you're going to have a stock sale, or you have a business sale, or succession planning. Or let's say you have a year where you have a lot of income in that particular year, and you want to change the tax brackets that you're in. You can use that 664 to do that. You can also use it to convert to Roth plans. So if you have an IRA right now, which has a lot of cash in it, a lot of investments in it, you can convert that IRA to a Roth IRA in part by utilizing tax offsets, by creating tax deductions to offset the income that you achieve by converting to Roth. So the power of 664 is very real. It is usable by anybody. And I think you might like the idea of reducing your taxes. I think you might like the idea of accumulating money for retirement purposes. And I think you ultimately might like the idea that when you're gone, that you've passed that on to some organization or something, some cause that you want to support. I think it's the most powerful formula in the world right now, because it is economically driven. It's not political at all. It's individual. It's your determination. You determine what it is that you want, what you want to do. I hope that you understand how vital this is to your own planning, to your own future thought processes, how you're going to create what you need later in life. We've talked about the pyramid on this program before, the confidence pyramid, but it all starts with confidence over money. In order to get confidence over money, you have to accumulate it. There are a lot of ways to accumulate money, but 664 is one of the best because it's a tax protected vehicle. It enables you to put in non-cash assets, to be able to sell those non-cash assets without paying any tax, and you get a tax deduction, and then you get all the income from that. Those are very powerful tools. And Einstein was responsible also for saying that the two most powerful things are compound interest and time. So you have the ability, if you're young and you want to start, if you personally want to create something for yourself that's going to be meaningful going forward, that will always be with you, a 664 trust is the way to do that. You also can use pooled income funds, which is a little bit easier to do because it is operated by a third party, whereas the trusts are operated by yourself. The pooled income fund allows you to join other people who have as their objective creating income, getting tax deductions, but also eventually endowing their own favorite purposes, whatever it is that they think is important to support. We want to endow America. We want to make it possible for nonprofit organizations to live off of the endowment funds. We had a very interesting meeting with an organization recently where we met with their board members and we were discussing this issue because most nonprofit organizations, most non-governmental organizations, most 501c3s, most charities, as they're all called, have the difficult problem of raising money on a regular basis. And the way that that's done generally is they find people that they who want to support their cause, who have assets to give, have cash to give to them, and they ask for the money. They basically are asking hat in hand for a contribution to their organization. We feel there's a better way to do that, and that is to explain to the donor that we have a way of helping the donor. We want to help the donor by using 664. 664 is a process that enables the donor to plan for the future using a favorable tax environment, income production, and eventually a philanthropic gift. And philanthropy is not just to the rich, okay? It's no longer just the purview of the ultra wealthy. Philanthropy is about all of us. It's love for human kindness. And as Albert Einstein said, love is the most powerful force there is. So the other thing that's happened recently is this article. I cut it out of the Wall Street Journal from yesterday's Wall Street Journal. And it was in the editorial section. And it reads, "The middle class won't escape the audit wave. A CBO analysis belies a White House claim about new IRS funding." And what they're saying is basically that taxes that we pay are going to become more and more focused on by the Internal Revenue Service, by government, and you should pay what you're supposed to pay, but you don't need to pay more than you necessarily have to pay. The Honorable Learned Hand, in one of his appellate court decisions, said that taxpayers are not duty-bound to pay the most that the law extracts. They have the right and privilege to reduce their taxes as much as possible. Well, if you don't know how to reduce your taxes, then you need to find out. If there's a way to do it that you're not using, then you need to find out about it. And we're telling you that there is a way. I think that you will see that using this formula, 664 equals E squared, if you use the 664, you have a way of legitimately avoiding taxes. So what do I mean by that? Let's give an example. You've got some real estate that you have had for years. It's vacant property, doesn't develop it's not developing anything. You're not going to be developing on it. You want to eventually sell it, but right now the market is not great, but you'd like to get some benefit out of that vacant land. You can gift that vacant land to a 664 trust, that you create. And when you gift that land to the 664 trust, you'll get a tax deduction for the appraised value of that land based on what the trust terms are. So if depending on your age, when you set up this 664 trust, that determines how much of a tax deduction you'll get. And the other thing that determines it is what percentage you're going to take from that trust as income for yourself. And you can establish that at the time when you create the trust. So let's say you want to set up an 8% trust, an 8% 664 trust. What that means is that each year, 8% of the value of that trust is going to be paid to you in the form of income. So if you put vacant land into the trust, the vacant land has a value, let's say it's a value of $500,000, and based on your age and an 8% trust, you can get a roughly 50% tax deduction for that property. So you'll get a $250,000 tax deduction in the year that you make the gift to the charitable, to that 664 trust that you set up. So you've made use of that vacant land, even though it wasn't going to produce anything for you right away. It gave you an opportunity to recover taxes, to recover money and pay less in tax. So that's just using that vacant land as a means to create a tax deduction. Now that land is sitting in the trust, and if it's not making any money and you have to take a distribution, that's a problem, because then the trust will start giving you back pieces of the land. So what you do is you make the trust a net income trust. And making it a net income trust says that you don't have to distribute income unless there is income. But that's not going to work for later in life if after you sell the property, you want to get the money from that trust each year for retirement purposes. So you put in a flip provision. Now, I'm purposely making this a complicated transaction because I want you to be able to see why it's important to work with people who know how to use 664 properly, who know how to create the trust that's necessary to fit your particular situation so that it's hand or personally designed for you. And I hear people say, and I hear you probably questioning in the background saying, well, this sounds pretty complicated. You almost get turned off. I know people, when I start mentioning numbers, they go, Ed, I'm out of this, because math is not their frame of reference. But you need to understand that there is scientific background behind this. There is economic background behind this. There is a philosophical background behind this. And there are really good feelings behind this, because what you're doing is you're basically creating the endowment for yourself. Remember E squared? You're creating an endowment for yourself that you're going to be able to use to support you later on so that you have additional income when you get ready not to work any longer. You're also going to have an opportunity to reduce taxes in transactions. So, for example, when you sell that land that you put into that trust that we were just talking about, when you sell that land and you make a profit on it, you won't pay any capital gains tax on that profit. So the full amount of the value of that land at the sale will be used to produce the income that you're looking for. There's another provision which can be added to that, which is a makeup provision. And the makeup provision allows you to take larger amounts than just the 8% if it earns more than 8% and you didn't collect that 8% in the past. So that's another little trail out of the 664 trust that you need to be directed down by a guide, by an advisor who can tell you which is the best way to use this when the opportunity arises. Primary objective of this lesson in 664 is to get you to understand that 664, the number, represents something you can use. It's a part of the tax code, just like a 401k or a 529. The Section 664 trust is something that you can use to benefit yourself, your family, and eventually the community. It's one of the most powerful tools that has ever been created by Congress. And the weird thing about it is nobody really knows about it. And it's been in existence for over 50 years. And so we're trying to bring this to light now. We hope that over the next 25 years that people will use 664 to endow America, to make the nonprofit organizations in the country, the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations, be able to support themselves through your generosity. While you've helped them, you've also helped yourself for your lifetime. So it's a really good program. And all we're doing is identifying it. We didn't create the program. The program was created by government. Government gave us 664 and the other sections of the code that create the theory of social security. We've just identified it with this formula. And we hope that you'll see this formula around town a lot, because we want to publicize this concept. We want to publicize the 664 so you get used to knowing when to use it, how to use it, and where to get the help to use it. So I've kind of belabored that point a little bit. I don't want to take up any more time on this program with that. I want you to, I can tell from responses that we get, it is complicated, and we hope that you'll make it easier to use by learning about it and going to our website. Go to socialsecharity.org, socialsecharity.org. Look at the website. We've got actually, it's all buttons connecting to parts of the website that are important to understand what it is that social security is, how it works, why it's different from social security. They sound alike, but they're different, quite different, but they're similar in a lot of ways. Both were created by government, by our Congress. They both produce income later in life, and they both are protected from a lot of resources. For example, both are protected against creditors. Both are individually designed to pay income to the individual. They're creditor proof, but the main difference between Social Security and a Social Security account, a 664 account, the main difference is that at the end of life, at the end of the time when you're collecting the income, when that ends, with Social Security, the entire corpus that you put in, all the money that you paid in, all the years that you worked, and all the money that your employer put in, all of that huge amount, it disappears when you die. If you have no family to leave it to, and even if you have family, it is restricted. It's left to your widow as long as your widow is alive, and it's left to your widow if she has, and your widow can have, or your widower can have income from it if you have children under the age of 18, but it's restricted. And the point is that is not in your control. What happens to all of that capital that you put into the Social Security account? It disappears, and it's used by the government to do whatever they want. With Social Security, you have the opportunity to direct what you created. You can direct it to a donor advised fund. You can roll it into a donor advised fund at your death, and then you could leave it to your children to manage into the community, or you can leave it directly to a nonprofit organization or many nonprofit organizations. I have a client that has an array of 25 different nonprofit organizations that are going to get the remainder of his trust when he passes. When his 664 trust is over, paying him income, that money is going to pass to about 25 different nonprofit organizations. We've already told them that they're going to get something, and they can count on that because it will eventually be there. The amount may not be clear, may not be established right now, but we know that they're going to get a gift in the future. This is better than bequests. Bequests are not as powerful as using 664 to pass money to nonprofit organizations. When you make a bequest in a will, you don't get a tax deduction for making that bequest. And the nonprofit organization at the end, if you were to tell them that you left a bequest, it may or may not be there, depending on how long you live and depending on what happens in your life during the time that you have the assets. So this is a way for you to plan for yourself primarily because you love yourself. We think everybody should love themselves, feel good about themselves. And this helps you feel good about yourself because it's a way for you to accumulate something for later. And what's really indirectly a benefit, which you may not think is a benefit when I tell it to you, but you can't go in and take it out. It's an irrevocable trust. So whatever you put in will stay there. And that's good and bad. I understand that when times are hard, you may want to tap into your savings, but you shouldn't be tapping into your retirement savings. People if you have a problem, I can tell you that a lot of people, when they were going through the COVID experience, they needed funds. So they went to their 401k and they may have borrowed from their 401k, or they may have surrendered their 401k. They may have taken out of their IRA, depending on where their money was accumulated. The impact of that is okay at the initial stage because you needed the money, But eventually it's going to come back to haunt you if you destroy the fabric of the very account that you're using to accumulate money. So this stops you from doing that. This also prevents you from losing it to an unhappy spouse in a divorce or a creditor. So it's protected and it's secured, and you can see what it is, and you can manage it. You can say where you want the funds to be invested, and you can put in non-cash assets as you go along. You can put in cash as you go along. Anytime you want, you can put in more, as long as it's designed properly. You can use it to purchase non-tax, tax-free instruments if you wanted to inside a 664, so that you don't have taxable income. It's a very powerful tool to be able to use when it's appropriate. And so you need to work with an advisor that can help you determine whether or not it's appropriate for you. And if it is appropriate for you, what is the best flavor? What's the best style that fits your situation, fits your individual situation? That's why a professional philanthropic advisor is important. So if you go to the website, socialsocharity.org, you'll find a button which says Find an Advisor. And that'll take you to the Endow America Network Foundation and the Council of Professional Philanthropic Advisor listing that we have there of advisors in and around the United States who are capable of advising you in this area. For the most part, they're chartered advisors in philanthropy. That's a designation that is given by the American College. It's Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy, a CAP. And that designation indicates that they have been educated and they have been familiar with and are utilizing 664 for the benefit of the community and the individual donors. This is something for you. This is something that will help you as a citizen, a tax-paying citizen. You have the right to look at this as a way to do things for yourself that are favorably taxed. You can also find information about the comparisons between Social Security and Social Security on the website. We have a graphic on there which also explains the difference between a pooled income fund and a donor advised fund, which you might find interesting. A lot of people today utilize donor advised funds when they want to reduce their taxes on a stock transaction. And we're suggesting that not only donor advised funds good, but also pooled income funds are good. And the difference between those, the main difference between a pooled income fund and a donor advised fund is in a donor advised fund, you don't get any income back. But in a pooled income fund, you do get the income back for your life. And you also have the opportunity to change things as you go along. So we're out of time today, but please tune into our radio station. You'll find that as well on the website. There's a big blue button there to connect to our digital radio station and our phenomenal music programs that are there on Sundays. Also the special features on Fridays. You can find out more about what we're doing as well by hearing some of the interviews that we've been doing over the time and the phenomenal music that's chosen for you by the Wanda Miles genius mind in the music area. So thank you very much for helping to make the world a better place. This is The Road to Human Kindness. We'll see you next week.